Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Second Act Actors. I'm your host, Dr. Janet McMorty, and I'm still a medical doctor simultaneously trying to pursue a career in acting. My guest this week is Chelsea Johnson. Chelsea. I love Chelsea. We had a very interesting meeting. It was fantastic. We actually met via a friend of ours, Jennifer Wigmore, who has been a guest on my show. She introduced us because we both have podcasts. And she was like, would you two want to talk at the ACE conference about podcasting? And we said, heck yes. So we put on a seminar about podcasting together. And then I started taking acting classes with her. She's coached me in tapes, and she's just one of the coolest people I've ever had the privilege of meeting. She hosts a podcast called Q to Q. Definitely go check it out. Q to Q, the Performers Podcast. And she talks about this in the episode. Her tagline is, "Don't wait to create." It is such a wonderful, wonderful podcast. We share a lot of guests because, we love talking to creators and performers. All right, Chelsea is everything. She is a musical theater performer. She's a singer. She's a dancer. She's a coach. She is an actor. She is a creative in every beautiful sense of the word. Please enjoy the incredibly talented and wonderful Chelsea Johnson. Tell me your story. How did you get into this crazy business?
Okay. Wow. Okay. Well, I was born on a... No, I'm kidding.
It was a rainy Tuesday.
Okay. Since I was really young, it didn't start as necessarily as a, I'm going to do this as a thing. Although that did happen quite early, but not that early. But when I was younger, my parents, I was really lucky in the sense that my parents encouraged expression, and music was always playing in our household. And every night after dinner, they would put us in the basement, me, my brother, and my sister. There's 5 of us now, but at the time there were 3. And would turn on records, and we would make up we would dance and kind of story tell through our bodies literally every single night after dinner, and dance around to George Michael's Faith, or, the Dirty Dancing record. We had a record player. And, to this day, I can't not move when music is on. They're kind of synonymous. And then we grew up watching so many movies. So my dad built, and I think, I'm kind of fuzzy on these details, but had a video store called Circus Video, and it went under eventually. And I was really young, so I don't remember. It's kind of foggy, the details. But do you remember the battle between VHS and Beta? They were
my gosh.
Okay. I know I'm dating myself.
I'm with you there.
So for the younger generation, it's kind of like Blu-ray and what was the other one? Blu-ray and HD.
Yeah.
And when DVDs were battling it out. Yeah.
Yes.
So VHS and Beta. So when the movie store went under, we got all of the Beta tapes from the movie store. So I literally had a movie store to watch in terms of movies. Every movie that had been released from 1970 to 1989, 90, something like that. So it's just this plethora of just being exposed to all these different types of movies. Of course, I couldn't watch them all because they were not all appropriate. But yeah, we would watch, some of our favorites were Grease, Dirty Dancing was a staple, Major League, all these movies we just watch on repeat. I became obsessed with Elvis movies, a bunch of those. I'm a huge Elvis nut. I'm a huge Elvis fan, which comes from my grandmother, which also leads me to when we were at my nanny's, we would go over there and they were always playing oldies in the basement and we would play oldies and listen to music. So I just really, as we played pool, their basement was like a throwback to the 1950s. They never changed it. It was a total time warp. I'm not even like, you know, swivel stools with the padded seats and like it was, you know, it really was a time warp. So yeah, I just grew up around a lot of music, a lot of movies. You know, I didn't do any extracurricular activities until I was 11 years old, which is when we couldn't afford it. And, my mom remarried and I was really lucky that the person she remarried was, open to supporting my goals. And I really was lucky. My first love was singing and I, you know, found an amazing singing coach, which is he's still my coach today. And I've had an abundance of coaches throughout my life. His name's Ray Lyle. And, I've had an abundance of like so many different coaches and I always go back to him. I just really lucked out, on my very first vocal coach and he kind of took me under his wing. And, at age 16 said, "Hey, I think you should think about coaching." So he took me, I was his little protege. And after a year, he started feeding me students because he opened his own vocal studio, started feeding me students. And I started coaching people from there. So that was my first step into coaching. So I've been coaching vocals for over 20, I don't know. Oh my gosh, that's embarrassing that I can say like 26, 27 years, being 39 years old now. But alongside of that, I always had a flair for drama. So I, you know, at age 11, I got to take, drama classes at Theatre Aquarius and, you know, started doing shows at age 14. My very first show was at the Tivoli Theatre in Hamilton, Jesus Christ Superstar, and found my way into kind of music theater in that respect. So I really was loving the like vocals and the R&B and the pop and the rock genres, and then at the same time pursuing theater as well. So that's kind of how I got into it, and then I went to Sheridan for musical theater performance, a really rigorous program if you know anything about that. But I met some wonderful teachers, wonderful coaches, and two of my like so many wonderful people. To this day, my ride or dies are from there. My two best friends, and that's kind of like the long and short of it in terms of how I got into it. In terms of your podcast, in terms of what I think would be valuable to your listener, because I'm all about transparency, because that sounds like, oh, Chelsea was just like, oh, I'm going to be an actor. I knew what I wanted to do and you know, that sounds so together. And don't get me wrong. It was a passion of mine. In my late 20s, I was really burning out, really not enjoying the journey that I was on. And, I mean, like really like financially drained, emotionally drained, mentally drained, feeling like I wasn't contributing to my household enough, just, you know, starting to doubt myself and going also the projects I was involved in. I was like, I'm not feeling fulfilled. This isn't why I, you know, started this. I started this because I love to dance in my basement. You know, like that's where the true spark is. And I just said that light had really gone out for me. So I actually left the business for about 5 years, which doesn't sound like a long time, but in true Chelsea fashion, I like go big or go home. I'm like, I am no longer an artist. I'm not doing any of that anymore. Like throw the baby out with the bathwater. Oh my goodness. But anyway, what I really realized about that experience, it was so valuable. Number one is because we get told as artists that if you ever leave the business, it's like, oh, there's like this kind of snooty, maybe snooty is the wrong word, but it's the one I'm using today. But it's like, oh, she left the business. You know, there's this like, she couldn't hack it feeling that you know what I mean? There's this kind of permeation. It just lives in the zeitgeist of the industry. And so I think for a bit I had a lot of shame associated with that, of leaving, but it was so freeing. I'm not encouraging people to leave the business. That's not what I'm doing. But you know what? It was like everything I did from age, 11 onward was to help me pursue this thing that I quote unquote loved. And so my identity got wrapped up in it, right? It really did. It was like an artist is a part of who I am. It will never leave me, but I'm not what I do, and leaving the business really allowed me to see, oh, I'm a whole ass person. I'm a whole person who has other things to give and also opened my eyes to so many things to learn. Like so many different types of people in this world, because when you get in this world, you're really saturated because you have to be so focused in what you want to do. But the feeding that being out of the business did to my artist was crazy. I just really learned the lesson of it's so valuable to live your life, to not become obsessive about, and grip so tightly on your goals as an artist, as a creative, whatever it is that you're doing, whatever it is. And I'm still working on that to this day because I do love it, but I have to remember to be a person too. And that actually feeds my artist big time, And so my artist started getting really loud because I was put it in a corner and was you sit there, and you don't come out. I was I'm not doing this anymore. But in doing that, my artist started really screaming, being I need to do this. So it really then allowed me to reflect on, oh, maybe this is part of me, but I don't need to silence it completely. And then I started thinking, I was what is it that if I were to come back to this, what does that look like for me? And for me, what I really realized, I started getting curious about sorry, you've asked one question and I'm just talking. Okay. But this is my journey. This is it. So, I'm just really passionate about this part because I just see, I coach outside of here as well as I do creative coaching, right? So the artists that I work with, I just see so much pressure on themselves and so much desire to make it, but the grip is so tight and I see myself in that. Mm-hmm. So if I can share anything with everyone, I just want to say be gentle with yourself because that's just so freaking important. And I'm still learning that. But yeah, so I started going, okay, if I were to come back to this, because I'd been gone for 5 years, what does that look like for me? Mm. If I get to redesign this, because I can't do what I was doing, because that was literally sucking my soul. So I know what that looks like. So if I come back to this, what does this look like for me? What parts of being a creative do you like? Okay, I like the expression part. That's no matter what I do, that just seems to leak out of me. I love connection. I love rehearsal more than I love performing. Okay, so it's the connection. It's the camaraderie. It's the creating with others. It's the playing off of others. It's making something together with collaborating. I love that. And then I literally was when I was in the business, I noticed that a lot of artists would just come to me and talk to me. I don't know if I've a green light on my forehead or I don't know what that is, but I welcomed it and I loved it. That's part of the connection. I was maybe that's why, right? So they would just come up and talk to me and, tell me just basically about what was going on in their life or their issues. And so I started to see a through line, that we were all kind of I equate it to a duck on water, everything's fine. And underneath we're ah! Right? Yeah, I was what if we just aired this out? What if we just stopped pretending? What if and I was starting to think about what made me feel leaving the business. And part of that was lack of community, feeling alone, isolation. I think that's one of the misnomers that exists about performers is that we're like these social beings that are like out social butterflies. And maybe some of us are, but a lot of us, it can be quite isolating, the experience. So yeah, that's where I got the idea for Q to Q, like for my podcast. It was like, what if we just aired this all out? What if I could learn from people and in the learning share with everyone else, and we can all just stop pretending. And I think that if we can stop pretending, that weight will just lift off our shoulders a little bit more and make us feel a little less alone. Yeah. And I've always wanted to interview people at different points of their journey. I'm not interested, like, don't get me wrong. I've had amazing people on, like Ryan Stiles and Julie Black and like Colin Margaret, like some wonderful, like, people who have done amazing things in their life. But I think it's really, really important that for what my podcast does anyways, is like, everyone at every stage and every part of your journey, it's all important. Yes. Because I think if someone's listening and they're at a different point, like, can you relate to, someone who, like Colin Mockery, or maybe you can relate to parts of his story, but he's not exactly maybe where you are. Right. And sometimes we put things, accomplishments on the pedestal, like on a pedestal. Right. Yeah. And although those things are awesome, and I hope they happen for everyone, including myself, I don't think that's what makes us an artist. And I don't think that's what brings us joy necessarily. So yeah, I came back and I started the podcast, and I really realized that I want to create more of my own projects, less auditioning, I have a real passion for that and collaborating and creating, as opposed to like, although, like, don't get me wrong, like right now I've just started doing a Grease review show, and like I'm still performing and things like that. But my passion really lies in like seeing people, the coaching, I just love collaborating and seeing people just embrace themselves and fly. I really do. It's a huge passion of mine. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's so many things that you just said just struck such a chord with me. I think the first one that I'd love to chat with you about is the idea that you quit, therefore you fail. And there's like, you quit, therefore everyone at the water cooler, or whatever the proverbial water cooler is for acting, is like, oh yeah, like she couldn't hack it in the talkies, right? Like, stuff like that. And I think about that so much because of the parallel I find with a lot of very focused tunnel vision career paths. I'll use my own example of medicine.
Yes.
Where there's a feeling of, this isn't just your career. It's not like I'm just going 9 to 5 doing data entry. No offense to people who do data entry. This is my calling.
Yeah.
And it is so much my identity that if I quit, not only are people going to be like, ha, told you so, but a part of my identity will be ripped away and gone forever because it is my calling. And I wonder what your thoughts are, because for me, it's the reason why I feel that way is because of how hard it is to become a doctor, to become an actor. It's like the education part of it, where if I decide to quit, I've invested so much time, energy, money, that my calling is now gone. That time, energy, money is now gone. Like, I don't know. There's a weird sensation of it's not just a career. It's everything.
It's like I'm too far into it, right?
Yeah, what is it? The self-fulfilling, what is it? When you invest, right? So much money, you're like,
yeah. You're just like, I can't quit. I'm in this now, make it work, Yeah. But we do that in a lot of things. We do that in relationships, right? We're like, I've been here for, a couple things come to mind. And I saw this clip the other day. So I can't remember who it was that said it. So I'm not gonna, it's not me. It's not me, folks. And this isn't my brilliance. But they were saying something along the lines of, instead of worrying about making the right choice, make the choices right. And so not thinking that every choice you make has so much weight to it. That, we think, they were using an example of like, okay, say you have Yale and Harvard to choose from to go to school, and you choose Yale and you have like a terrible experience. It's not great. And you're like, oh, I should have chose Harvard. I chose wrong. She's like, how do you know that Harvard wouldn't have been the same or worse or better? We don't get to look into the, you know, the future. There's no duality where we can see and compare. So you get one life and you get a million choices. I think sometimes I think anyways is like, I'm limited. I only have so many choices I can make and so many turns. What the heck? Who made that rule? I made it up in my head, right? Like, like we can make we can turn at any time. People say you can't go back. Yes, you can. You may be a little bit older, but yes, you freaking can. I'm just learning that now. And you know what? You go back and you are a different self and you have different experiences, but you can pivot, you can turn. And I think that pressure, and guys, like I am learning this in real time. This is not me pontificating. I am in the mud with you. Like, you know, I'm learning you can make a hard left turn at any given point. It's really what I'm discovering. It's just my worry about judgment of others, of the shoulds, of what I should be doing with my life, what I should look like right now in compared to what society thinks I quote unquote should be doing. Hate that word, should. Get out of here. Right. And the other thing that came to mind when you were like, you know, leaving the business and oh my gosh, and people, you know, thinking about talking about you and all the things and feeling like a failure. Here's the funny part of all of that. It's all head junk. Like, nobody think about me. No. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about you. Nobody cares about me. What the heck? Who do I think I am? Like, honestly, you know what I mean? Like, nobody thinking about you. Not one person, not one. Not even a half a person came up to me. Not even a toddler came up to me and was like, Chelsea, how dare you? You've been going after this all your life. Blah, blah, blah. Like the shame is self-imposed for most people. Okay. I'm sure there's cases out there where that stuff does happen. So someone's listening to this being like, it happened to me. You don't know my story. Absolutely. I see that for people, but for the most part, we have internalized other voices that are not ours. And, you know, that we may have heard in the past but it's really living up to, we feel we're disappointing ourselves. Really. We're shaming ourselves. We're shitting all over ourselves, really. Right. Like it in that respect. So I can say that's what that gave me. Leaving the business for 5 years. That's what that actually gave me, was the perspective to go, oh, I'm on the other side and nobody cares. And I'm free. Oh my goodness. Now I have freedom of like actual choice, because I've seen what it's like to leave, and now I know what it's like to come back as well. Like I've seen both sides. So there's like this like I don't know if like lack of judgment or like I don't know exactly what it is, but yeah, I just wonder if there's something else you want to pursue alongside, you don't even and by the way, you don't even need to leave it. Mm-hmm. You're a whole ass person. You can do multiple things. That's what I love about, you know, I feel like right now, like I feel like the world in general is opening up to the fact that we are more than one thing. Mm-hmm. We've always been more than one thing, but we're embracing that. I feel like as in society, it's like, you can do multiple things. You know, for you, perfect example. You're a doctor and you're pursuing, you know, you are such a great example and leading in that way to be like, you know what? I love my medicine. I'm not leaving that. Maybe one day. Well, I don't know, but I am just going with the flow. And this is my passion. It's something I've always wanted to pursue. And I'm going to do that in tandem. It doesn't have to be either or. Yeah. It can be both.
And I think what's really interesting about the whole no one cares is when you flip it on yourself and say, how much am I judging others for leaving what they're doing? Oh, zero. In fact, it's something that you and I both do extremely well, toot our own horns, is the fact that as we deserve to, when I know you and I both see people who are doing the pivot, doing the switch, trying to do more than one thing, we are screaming and cheering for them from the mountaintops, right? So why do we think that others aren't doing the same for us? A lot of times, we are kind of wrapped up in our own little worlds. It's fine. But like, when I hear of somebody wanting to pivot or wanting to do more than one thing or changing their lives, I'm like, excuse my French, fuck yes, right? I'm cheering for you. I'm not judging you. I don't have time to judge you. That takes a long time, and that's a lot of energy. I'd rather be positive about your decision.
Well, you know what? You bring up a really interesting point, Janet, because having known you, having spent time with you, having you in class coaching you, all that sort of stuff, it's one thing that I can say in my experience of you is that you have a very abundant mindset. So I think we've all been there, and I can only speak for myself. I've been there at points in my life where I wish I could be a little more happy for people. Totally. I've had moments, but when I look back and reflect on those moments, I realize that it's because I had scarcity thinking. Like I there wasn't enough to go around, and someone's happiness was a threat to my own because I didn't really truly believe that it would come to me because I didn't have abundant thinking in that moment. It was like, well, whether it was for me specifically, like it could be around the way I looked, to be like, oh, well, that person is blonde and 6 feet and like making it and judging them for being beautiful or like, quote unquote, like society standard, whatever that's beauty norm, which I also think is getting much better, in the industry, slow progression, but it is moving. Yeah. But I reflect back on those times where maybe I wasn't as, didn't have as much grace for others or myself, is mostly because I didn't believe it could happen for myself. Lack of belief in myself and that it would, come, that I was deserving of it or that that I could have what I wanted in life. And so it was really hard for me to be happy in those moments. Now, different. I'll tell you what flipped that for me and it's not like I did it all the time, but we all have moments, right? Where we're insecure or whatever. But I'm telling you, I'm like you. I don't experience that very, very little now. And it's creating. Like my tagline for QTQ is don't wait to create. And there are so many reasons for that. But creation gets you out of your head and into your body. Number one, it gets you out of your head. When you're creating, you're not thinking about who thinks what. When you're actually in the act of creating, you're in flow, you're actually focused on the thing you're doing. But when you're like you just mentioned, I'm like, yes, fuck yes, change your life, all that, in hanging around creators like yourself and like other people who create things and content, and people who create are the last, that what I've noticed are the last people to judge other people, because they know the vulnerability and how hard it is to actually get something from A to Z. They know. So they're the last people to be like, well, that was a piece of crap or how dare you? No, you shouldn't do that. Don't think that doesn't work. That doesn't, they're the last, creators are the last people, from my experience anyways, that I've noticed. And I noticed for myself when I started creating, because it's such a vulnerable act to go, here's my art. Like, and I can say this because I'm also a performer, and it's a different feeling when you create something from nothing, from your own, like, and don't get me wrong, as an artist or as an actor or as a singer, you are creating from your own thing. But what I've noticed that's different for me, like what the podcast, like it's my thing, like it's my baby, right? So like there's a little more vulnerability in the sense that like the idea of the thing is me and the creation. And when it goes out, it's I've touched it at every touch point along the way. I have my hands in it. And that makes me feel a little more vulnerable. Yeah. So when I see other people creating, I'm like, oh man, I know. I know. And I'm like, get it. Yes. And that's where that comes from, because it's just it's a vulnerable feeling, but it's a freeing feeling as well. And that's another reason why I say don't wait to create, because I've noticed for myself, I've just developed such a more abundant mindset through that. And also, a better understanding of creative process. So I can actually collaborate with people better now, because I understand the other side. I'm not just the performer side, but like the producing, like I've directed and produced theater shows as well. So like understanding what goes on, I have a lot more grace, and I can actually communicate better because I know what's going on their end as well. So that's one thing that I can share with my experience in going from maybe, like a little more judgmental, a little more critical as a person, to 10 years later finding myself just like you, going, yes, you can do this. Get so excited when I see people succeed.
Yeah.
In the way that they want to.
I would love to hear about your approach to teaching and coaching actors.
Okay. Well, as you know, I coach at MAP Actors in Toronto, and I study or collaborate, however you want to call it, with the wonderful Meredith McGeechee. Shout out, amazing. Yes. What drew me to the way that we work at the studio is the play-based, kinesthetic-based way that we work in our bodies, and the autonomous way that we work. I really, have enjoyed that way of working. It's how my system turns on, and I'm less worried about what people think of me, but also in terms of coaching, watching others empower themselves, and discover through play and through grace for themselves, and really looking at them, developing themselves as artists as well. And seeing themselves in that light is so, important. And we do crazy exercises in class to get you into your body and really tune into yourself in a way that is, born of through your body, and not so intellectually based, and which creates some magic in class, as you witnessed. So yeah, that's, in terms of approaches, it's like, in terms of approaches, it's really the magic word of playing, getting back to what we did when we were kids, and undoing the shoulds.
It's funny when you were talking about it, I was of course reflecting in my mind about my experiences in the studio and in your class, and remembering sitting and auditing a class and that you invited me to, and I'd never cried watching an acting class before, but I had like tears streaming down my face just watching other actors create. And it's funny just thinking now about, we're talking about scarcity mindset and abundance mindset, being in your class and being a part of this studio. And again, this is not an ad, blah, blah. Everyone knows this. I'm not sponsored by anybody. But truly, when I think about what was the ability to change into an abundant mindset for myself, 100% part of it was being in this studio in your class, because you're watching people create and do the thing. And what is so different from any other class I've been in is there was never... I would sit and be so excited to watch other people do their scene.
I know, right?
It never existed before. I was like, oh, this is so boring. I don't care. When is it my turn?
I know.
Watching them play, I was like on the edge of my seat every week, watching them do the thing, being like, fuck yes. And that developed the abundant mindset, because I was like, this is creation. It is so powerful.
Yeah. It's so engaging to watch people take risks in a way that they're not even aware that they're about to take risks in. It really is true discovery in the moment. And I thank you for saying that. I mean, you know, I love having you in class. But yeah, I experienced the same thing because I'm not just coaching. One of the beautiful things about in the studio is the coaches are in class as well.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's a Monday night or a Tuesday day, we are in class as well. We call it, you know, working it out. We're having a workout or we're practicing. We don't call it a performance. We're not really into that, you know? So it's really great to hear that that's your experience because I experienced that too on Monday nights. I am so invested in everyone that gets up and, that's just like another part of your learning as well. Because I'm learning so much from my colleagues, my peers, watching them as well. And it's so engaging for me on Monday nights to be in class and watching as well. And so thank you for reflecting that back because, yeah, I feel the exact same way about my fellow peers and colleagues. I'm so excited. Sometimes more excited than for me.
It's so true, right? And
yeah.
It's funny when I think about watching like you in class and also you as a coach, as a teacher. It's so interesting now hearing your story of your upbringing and how so much, and I know some of what you do now. I know you do incredible work, pole dancing and stuff.
Pole dancing. Like, oh my gosh, we should talk about that.
But you're just so like knowing now how you grew up being so encouraged to create with your body and just feel things in your body. I'm like not surprised that this was the school that, you know, you're able to be involved in, right? Like it's just beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, in working this way, when I first started working with Meredith, like it felt like getting into a warm bath in that sense. Like I felt like I was always, I don't know I was working in the traditional theater school sense of how they were, you know, and nothing wrong. Like, again, I'm not here to bash any sort of approach to acting. That is not my jam. You do you. But when I found this way of working, I was like, this is what I've always been wanting to do this way. Like, it just felt like, and I felt like I was always kind of othered in that sense of how I found my way in. And so this approach just felt like, oh, okay. You know, like I can be free and I can be silly and I can play and magic can still happen. And, you know, it's also the most beautiful, intimate work as well in terms of like, I don't want people thinking that's all we do is like funny stuff. That's not what we're doing at the studio. But, it was, you know, it's funny. You say encouraged to move my body and that I'm doing pole and, you know, if you don't mind, I'm going to take a hard left.
Yeah.
So because I'm very open about this as well. And, so growing up, like in terms of my body, yes, I was always moving my body, but I have, had a very, interesting path in terms of body image and in terms of, how I view myself. And I know a lot of people in this industry also have challenges and struggled in certain ways as well. And, it has been literally a lifelong journey of me learning how to accept my body. So, pole, you were mentioning pole. And, so about a year and a half ago, well, actually 3 years ago, I paralyzed myself, which you know about. And, and it was just before the pandemic. So I was paralyze my leg down to my foot. And, I tried to, you know, I had to heal myself in my apartment because we weren't allowed to see doctors during the pandemic. So I was trying to figure that out and I'm still healing. I still have some like numbness and weak, ankle, like my left ankle is a bit weak, but from where I came from, it's night and day. And I wanted to learn how to wear heels again. So I was like, I've always wanted to try pole dancing. And I thought to myself, I'm like, well, if I'm wearing heels, I can like grab the pole, you know, like if I fall, if my ankle gives out, I can grab the pole. That'll be like my little trainer buddy, you know? So I was like, that was my like thing that pushed me to do pole. But what I really wanted to do pole why I really actually wanted to do pole was because two things. I wanted to reclaim my sexuality for me. And that it didn't belong to anyone else's. And that it didn't belong to anyone else. And then the second reason also was I wanted to be able to look at myself in a mirror, not in a dance class, not in a, in that kind of setting, and not feel like traumatized afterwards. And I was like, and in pole, you have, it's funny because Chelsea don't wear shorts. Okay. So like in class, I was like, I have to wear shorts. Like you have to, because you need leg grip. And like, otherwise you just slide down the pole. Right? Like there are certain styles that you don't need leg grip for, but most pole dancing, you need leg grip. Like there's a reason why they dress the way they dress actually. Like you need your skin on the pole. So anyway, the difference between me now and when I started pole, it has been the most healing journey, most triggering journey, but the most healing journey at the same time, for me. Being in pole the first class, being like the first I would say 4 or 5 months, was just like inner voices being like, look at your cellulite in the mirror. Look at it. Like just completely picking myself apart for the first half hour class. Take half hour for those voices to kind of go away. And then finally, like you have to focus on what you're doing on the pole. So those voices can't exist because you'll like fall, right? Or you'll like, you need to actually focus. And what I loved about, and shout out to Brass Vixens, which is where I study. What I love about the studio, I don't know if it exists at every pole studio, but something that was so deeply healing. Again, it's nobody think about you. Nobody cared. Not one person was looking at me or judging me, or I didn't feel, if they were, I didn't feel it. And the representation of the different types of bodies in the class was so healing for me. And watching people of all like different backgrounds. I mean, in terms of like, we have dentists in class, 50, 60-year-olds in class, like all sorts of different body shapes, colors. Like it was so healing in that sense, because in a way I felt like I belonged, like I just felt like I was safe to I didn't feel like I belonged. I felt like I was safe to explore myself for the very first time in terms of my body. Because as a performer, it's for somebody else usually. In terms of like when you get out there and perform, that I shouldn't say it is. I've learned to reclaim that too for myself. It's for me now. But like in terms of how I grew up in my thinking as a performer, it was like, especially music theater. It's like dance for grandma, but in class, in pole class, it was like, oh my gosh, this is the first time. This isn't for a man. This isn't for an audition. This isn't so that someone thinks I'm attractive or valuable. This is literally like, can you get up this pole? Which I'd be like, I'm going to be too heavy. I can't lift myself. All these voices just like came into my head. And I literally would be like, I can't climb the pole. I'm too heavy. And then I would see someone else do it who, like watch someone else's strong body that maybe was a bit bigger than me or whatever. And be like, yeah. Like again, I was like, yes, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. So it just helped me undo the stupid rhetoric in my head around what strength is and what I can and can't do with my body. And, and to make sexuality a part of me that sexuality is healthy, and sexuality is, if for me as an artist, I want to explore all the parts. And in exploring my sexuality, it is integrated in other parts of my life and into my work as an artist as well. Not just sexy scenes. Everything. What I've discovered is everything touches. So the way I was compartmentalizing my trauma and my body image stuff, and it was not allowing me to be as free as I possibly could as an actor, as an artist. And I mean, of course, being in class every Monday at MAP and working with amazing actors is a part of that. But pole in specifically was like this thing that like helped me tackle this thing in a very like intentional way. I'm like, I'm going to show up in my short shorts and meet myself at the pole. Like the pole feels like my alter ego. Like it feels like it's like the other version of me, not other version of me, but cut that out. It's not the other version of me. It feels like I'm meeting myself at the pole. I don't know if that resonates with anyone, but it's been fast. It's been such and it's hard. It's hard. Pole's hard, y'all.
So many things, again, that are going through my brain about, the sports scientist in me is looking at the parallels between that and like how we approach performance anxiety in high level athletes. The idea as well of, this is me on my soapbox about like capitalism and the patriarchy. Like the world keeps on going in a patriarchal way if we as, feminine identifying human beings have scarcity mindset. What you're doing, and so what that is scarcity mindset in like, we must compartmentalize everything. We must banish sexuality from the fact that it's like part of our integration of everything. We need to be worried about what everyone's thinking about us because that is what keeps the like capitalistic machine running. But what like the ultimate fight the system is abundance mindset, and everything that you're doing is creating that.
Yes.
Like, even just what you're experiencing in your pole class is like saying fuck you to the system.
Can I tell you something? That yes, I love everything you were just saying. I love it all. I love it all. I'm eating it up. Yes, Jenny, yes. And that's such a good point. What you just brought up there. That is such a good point. And I can tell you something that I've discovered through pole about sexuality and presenting as a female and accessing my feminine energy and all that sort of stuff. And I just post in my stories, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not even posting like in my, and no one's commented negatively or whatever, but I have experienced like this. Oh, this is interesting. It's okay for me to express my sexuality when it's for somebody. Like when it's for a man or whoever, for the gays, right? It's okay, society, she's doing it for something, for a reason, for a performance, for whatever. But when it's for me, pushback. No. Like it's like when it's just for me. When I say, or sometimes I post me dancing, like in my solarium, like I have a solarium. Sometimes just post me dancing because I love to express, and now you understand why, because I've been doing it since I was a kid. Like, it's just a part of who I am. It's like, I decided. No one hired me to do that. No one's standing there watching me. It's completely for me. And what I've noticed is I've received messaging growing up that it's not, that the only reason to express that sort of, I'm specifically talking about pole and sexuality, is if it's for someone else. And and feeling like if I post that, well, then what am I saying about myself? I'm saying I think I'm amazing. I'm saying all this head junk started coming up for me, which like for me was all the more an indicator of like, oh, I needed to go towards that. I need to, I need to undo that thinking. That's just really not, it's not true. It's not helpful. It's also keeping me from deepening my understanding of myself as an artist, like all sorts of things, right? That were coming to my mind. But that was a big thing. Like when it's for me, the patriarchy says,
oh shit.
Right? Like, no, not for you, for us. Yeah. And so that's been powerful.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I think, we can both wax poetic about that. And I think about that all the time because, and it's funny, this is a terrible analogy, but I remember my dad coming to me and he's not a Swiftie, but he's like, I respect Taylor Swift. He's like, I don't really like her music, but I respect what she's doing.
Yeah.
He's like, but I don't really totally understand. Like, this is my beautiful, like, boomer father being like, why is everyone getting so mad? Like, it looks like she's having a great time. Shouldn't we be all happy? Like, she's having a great time. I'm like, Dad, people are getting all mad because she's inspiring generations of young female-identifying individuals to step into their power and be unique and be themselves. And for the patriarchy and, like, the current government, that is so terrifying and destabilizing because they're going to lose. They're sensing loss and they're fearful and they're scared. And when, you know, your deep, immature lizard brain gets scared, the patriarchy's response is rage, is anger, because it's terrifying when somebody steps into their feminine energy that has been shut down for so long. They're like, oh, dear God. But we liked it that way because we were in power. But now this is scary. I don't like it.
Yeah. And I've heard her I haven't watched her documentary, but I have actually heard it's pretty good. I don't know. I've really, there are so many documentaries out right now.
Oh my God, I know. I was like, I need to watch. Yeah. And it's about like, they're like powerful female identifying individual documentaries. Yeah. I'm like, I need to support this.
I know. But, you know, I'm just, recently, separated from a 17-year relationship and starting your life over. Geez. You know, that takes up time.
Just a tad, Chelsea.
You guys. Okay. Like, I literally, got into my apartment. I was like, in a month. I'll have it going in a month. Womp, 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 womp. Like, literally, what is it? It's February now. And I moved in November and I am nowhere close.
Where's the pressure coming from?
It's been 100% from me. Nobody cares.
100%.
It's totally
Nobody
from me.
cares.
That's what I mean, those expectations. Like, you know, the expectations I have for myself. And I kind of, you know, I stopped at I should say I stopped. It's still a work in progress, and my therapist will tell you. But it's like, I really try to stop trying to get rid of that person, you know, at a certain point. You know, the person who's like, you got to do it and you got to be better and you got to do, like, having all of the, you know, like that pressure that put on me. Cause I used to try and like, I'm like, I will eradicate her. She will be gone from my life. I'm going to get rid of her. I'm going to go to therapy and work on that, you know, like, which is another iteration of that person, right? It's like the pressure to get rid of that person, right? Like, it's like, I'm in the Matrix. So anyway, what I realized in that, it was going like, what if one day I was like, what if I just stopped and loved that person? Like, what if I just stopped and now I can laugh at myself as opposed to because when that person showed up, I'd be like, oh, I'm doing it again. And I'd feel so disappointed in myself. I would be like, I'm not getting any better. I'm still that like person who has high expectations and put so much pressure on myself. And I like, you know, tell myself I'm not doing enough or doing well enough or I'm not enough or blah, 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 insert negative comment. Right. And at a certain point, I was like, oh, what if it just means I care a lot? Like, what if that person's not like what if that part of my personality, you know, is not a terrible thing to have? And so when I show up, I'm like, oh, when it shows up now, I'm like, oh, there you are. There you are. Just trying to like do your thing. Oh, you're so cute. You know,
that's fighting the system.
Yes. So it's really interesting over the last few years, like how I can see that now. And I don't think I would have been able to see that, 5 years ago. I would have been trying to push through and kind of having like just a tight grip on myself, really, you know, but the gentler, I think we can only be as gentle with other people as we are with ourselves, you know? So I think it's made me a better coach. I think it's made, you know, I think it's, and also I like it more. Like I just like coaching more because of that, because I feel I'm collaborating with people more, you know, cause there's room for more, there's no wall between us. That wall of expectation between us, it's down, like it's less, it's more like, what do you bring in? Can we collaborate? I already think you're amazing, you know, as opposed to like me feeling like I need to produce a result for this person, you know, in my vocal lessons or with people, or, you know, they're expecting a result. So I got to get, right. There's that part of my personality coming through again, you know? And I'm like, I don't do that. I always assume when I'm a student, I always assume I'm responsible for my learning. Why am I responsible for this person's learning all of the time, 100% of the time? What if we start looking at this as a collaboration instead? Then we can make art, right? Then we can, you know, like, then we can actually, it becomes less didactic, you know, in nature. Yeah.
Do you, for anyone who is interested in getting back to creativity later on in life, or whose artist was pushed in a corner and is screaming at him?
Yeah. And that's why I wanted to offer that today. Cause I don't want it to sound like I just like went on this straight trajectory of like, I always wanted to be an artist and was an artist and forevermore will be, you know? Any advice? Yeah. And let me think about this specifically, because there's a few things coming to mind. But the first thing, the things that's loudest right now, which is hilarious because I'm just about to say whisper, is you can hear the whispers. And I think I spent a long time silencing the whispers. And I would always listen to the loudest voices, thinking they were the most important. Oh, I'm getting emotional. That small little voice is what I'm discovering more and more is the one that like I'm trying to grow, but like oftentimes it's just like this little like, hey, remember me? Remember that thing you used to do? Remember what brings you joy? Remember? And you're like, shut up. No, I have to do this thing. Can you just get quiet long enough just to hear that little thing and just give it a little bit of breath and get curious about it? And again, is that you get to make a million choices. You have unlimited choices to make. And you can follow that thing and then decide, oh, you know, I'm not saying quit. There's a difference between quitting and knowing, right? Yeah. That you want to go in a different direction. But, yeah, like, it's not about making right choices. It's about like being in flow with yourself. So yeah, just listen to the whispers of like the little things that are coming up for you, and not to discount them as just whispers, or that they're not important, or that they're just little things. They're often like the thing, the thing, you know, and if it keeps tapping, you know, yeah. In terms of advice, I try not to give advice, you know, in that respect, because it's like, I don't know. Here's a piece of advice. Nobody knows you how you know you. Mm-hmm. Only you know you. You know, you can get advice from everybody and absolutely talk to your friends and talk to your family, but only at the end of the day, only you know you. And that's why I say, I guess, the whispers part. It's like, you know what you're capable of, and you know what you really want to do. At the end of the day, you're just maybe a little bit scared to do it, and it's okay to be scared and do the things. It's okay.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And thank you, Chelsea, for being my guest this week. Thank you so much for this beautiful conversation, for swearing a lot with me, yelling at the patriarchy. It was just such a joy. Again, I absolutely love talking to you. I love being in your acting class. I just love the energy that you bring to legit everything. I love your energy that you bring to everything, girl. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And I hope you will join me next week for another episode of Second Act Actors. Bye.